Hey, Mert, let's talk about speaker contracts.
Oh, good idea, Cousin Russ. And this is something that society leadership needs to consider after they've decided, are they going to have meetings or webinars using Zoom? Are they or are they not going to ask the speaker if they may record the session, etc. And just a reminder that we're talking about Zoom for any kind of a meeting that your organization may have. It could be a genealogy society meet, could be a church organization. And you have to have the fellowship committee and the building facilities committee meet, etc. Any kind of a hybrid meeting would work well where some people are in person and some people are attending virtually. And Cousin Russ, that could be your speaker, appearing virtually.
Yep, sure could.
I wasn't going to be traveling to Western Massachusetts Genealogical Society in February. That's New England. That's asking for it.
That's snow weather.
I know, I could just see my wheelchair sliding on the ice. Anyway, these are the essential components that need to be added to a typical speaker's contract. I'm going to show you some, I'm going to flesh it out, but number one, think about Dave Robeson hosting us as speakers. You both are in the Eastern time zone. So you could say the meeting starts at 7. Well, that's 5 for me. So you got to have a table with 2 columns, one for the society's time zone and one for your time zone as a speaker to give to your speaker.
And
Uh,
that's to avoid confusion.
oh, totally. We just had to work that out on something else, didn't we,
Yep,
Cousin
we
Russ?
did.
Okay. The big question of recording we discussed in the previous short subject video. Um, but it needs to be stipulated one way or the other. Recording not permitted by the presenter or recording permitted, and what those parameters are. Now, Cousin Russ is going to talk to us in a moment about the necessity for a practice session the week before. And part of the week before idea is that Zoom updates frequently. Did you notice something new when you came to the meeting today, Cousin Russ?
I did.
It said, for the first time, it said that you're appearing on the panel means that you may appear in a recording. And I'm glad you clicked through and said that was okay. I can't deal with that yet. The other thing that I insist you put in a contract with me is additional contact information. Once, umpty years ago, I went to the Tri-Cities area in Washington State, and the person that was my contact person, I drove. Tam went with me, my oldest daughter. But my contact person did not answer her cell phone. And I couldn't get into the hotel room because it was not reserved under my name. It was reserved under the organization, the society's organization. Ended up the person was ill. So we need to have additional contact information. And especially if you are a presenter, um, you are showing a level of responsibility proactively in making it easy for that society to do their job, to get you oriented. And you're letting them know when you insist on that in a speaker contract that, hey, we mean business over this. We're not going to lose a speaker. I ended up in a bridal suite. It's kind of crazy, Cousin Russ. Anyway, when we talk about time zones and the schedule, this is a direct copy and paste from my typical virtual presentation contract. has to do with due dates for returning the contract, when I will give the link to the handout. And I give it in PDF format. I do not want it altered by the society. And when the practice session would be done. Now, those dates I haven't typed in there because this is a sample contract, but I did go to the effort of saying what the society's time zone was. Let's talk about the green room, Cousin Russ. What's that about?
That's about getting everything situated for your presentation and some discussion about when's the meeting going to be starting. It's laid out in the contract, but I find it helpful to have that discussion with the host. When are you going to start the meeting? Is there a business meeting ahead of time or at the end? So and how to handle comments during this presentation.
Exactly. Some presenters prefer to give a lecture. I like to do conversations. And so I don't mind normally having questions come up, and I tend to watch the chat dialogue to see what questions do come up so I can automatically weave them into the presentation. But other presenters don't do it that way. They'd prefer to keep the Q&A part toward the end. I once attended a meeting where we had a most interesting lady who was a national officer of the colonial dames of the 17th century. She had traveled 2 hours to come speak to us. The business meeting was a heated discussion over voting for the next slate of officers. It took so long that instead of an hour for a presentation, the poor woman had to sit through that heated discussion, and she had 15 minutes to present. At that point, she declined. What would have happened if it had switched and you let us hear that presenter first, and then she could go on her merry way? We're not paying presenters to sit through lengthy, heated discussions about voting rights for an upcoming slate of officers. So get it in writing. And this, as a society, shows that you have respect for your presenter, unlike what happened that very embarrassing day at the Minnesota Genealogical Society. Cousin Russ, this is a direct quote from my contract where, and I insist on using my contract. Nobody minds. Nobody gives me a hard time about it. I take full responsibility for what's in my presentation, and this basically indemnifies or holds harmless the society if I, sing a song that's under copyright, not in the public domain, etc. I can't run a video that is under copyright by somebody else unless I've expressed written permission. Now, once I did a presentation, actually I've done it several times, where I asked Elizabeth Shown Mills if I could use this portion from her book called The Evidence Analysis Process Map and include it as part of my handout to the audience, because she's an authority and I can't restate it. She said, "You certainly may. I know that you'll have the copyright statement on it and you'll put my web address. As a matter of fact, it's publicly available on the web, but it's still under copyright." And I had to have her permission to use it, and she gladly gave it. I explained that. So it says I'm not restricted by any contract from entering into the agreement. And why did I put the YouTube thing there, Cousin Russ?
Because YouTube has their own copyright restriction, and if you were to play a song that was in public domain, your channel would be looked at and maybe closed down.
Yeah. You get 3 strikes and you're out. And your first strike, you can't live stream. So if you're planning to use your YouTube channel as a society, as a way to gain more members when you have a general meeting and your presenter permits it, that presenter could totally mess you up if they did not adhere to normal copyright use. We're not talking about fair use and educational stuff. I get paid to present, and that means I would benefit from Elizabeth Shown Mills' work if I didn't have expressed written permission to use it. And YouTube is very, very picky. They thought I was inappropriate once, Russ.
I remember.
I remember that. Okay, so when we talk about best practices, we are letting our presenter and our own technical staff know we're going to check for updates. There's a big Zoom update, reboot their computer, only have essential programs, and if sound fades out during that virtual meeting, your presenter must be permitted to turn off her webcam, his or her webcam, because that the video takes up a lot of bandwidth. Okay, I'm not even sure if God Bless America is in the public domain, Cousin Russ, but I'm not taking any chances. Okay. The other thing that I would advise of your speaker, you know, the speaker may be the one with a Zoom account as opposed to your society, but you can't count on that all the time. The speaker is then in charge of things. And that's a lot for a speaker to be doing. They got to have a Cousin Russ. So apprise yourself of training videos and make that decision with your speaker in the contract about whose service are you going to use. Now let me just show you my my contract, Cousin Russ. 45-minute virtual presentation followed by 15-minute Q&A. There's my time zone thing. That I will use a web conferencing platform, currently Zoom. I had to take out Hangouts, Google Hangouts. That I will be available for 30 minutes within the week before, although you usually do those special equipment dry runs. That I will provide 4 pages for each of these total 60-minute presentations. And I will give the link to the digital syllabus 8 days prior to the date of presentation. Said handout materials are not to be archived on the Society's website, nor distributed. Who's providing what equipment? This one used to be longer, Cousin Russ. When there, and I need to adjust it, because if it's a hybrid situation, I'm going to ask that the screen size be a certain size. I'm used to big meeting rooms with a nice, huge screen. Not a little teeny 1950s, let's open up and pull up the projection screen. That I will use presentation standardized software. That it is my work and not anybody else's, which we mentioned. That I will not merchandise other than Dear Myrtle's blog, Genia webinars, organized genealogists. I'm going to have to add merch journal in there, I guess. How how they can refer to me, what the compensation is, and that the speaker is an independent contractor. And here's the part where here's the society address, meeting location, their website, Twitter, and an alternative person to get in contact with, as well as my information, which is normally filled in. Then cancellation, including what happens if it gets canceled due to public disaster, could be insufficient attendance. Maybe I'm getting old, Cousin Russ, and I don't quite have the draw I used to. I don't know. Okay, and then the digital signatures. So it's a 4-page contract, but it pretty much covers everything. I think I'll give a copy of this, a link to it in the show notes on the YouTube version of this particular recording. What are we going to talk about next, Cousin Russ?
I think we ought to talk about the equipment that's involved.
Yes. Now, on Monday, I did hear somebody say, well, it's very expensive to do virtual meetings or hybrid meetings. We're going to show you otherwise. Anyway, nothing left to say, but I'm Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.